So what I did was I accidentally hit the go button when I was creating my new session, and um, before I'd set up all my stuff. So what I can do, if you do that, if you hit the go button before you actually set up your session properly, what you can do is you can go up here to setup and go to session. And under session, this has the session setup here. And you can see there's a few things here. The only thing we can't really change at this point is the sample rate. Pro Tools will not let you change the sample rate after you've gotten going. So if this says 48 or 96 or something like that, some kind of sample rate that you don't want to have, then you kind of have to just go back and recreate a new session. But you can change the bit depth, you can change the interleaved here, and you can also change the file type that Pro Tools is recording. So this is what we've got going on here. It also is telling me what the system delay is, which is 1,115 samples, which is actually quite a lot. You can also change your time code rate, feet and frames rate, time code 2 rate, any of these things here, pan depth, this kind of stuff. You can change all this stuff here in the session setup. You can also change sync settings and time code settings here. So if you do start your session and you haven't set up your interleaved, your bit depth, or your wave file settings, then you can go ahead and change that here. But if you have not set up your sample rate and you want to change your sample rate, you actually have to just go back and create a new session. There's no real way to get around that, unfortunately. So I've got my session here. I'm just going to do a few housekeeping things here real quick. I'm just going to set my view, turn off narrow mix, and I'm going to go here. And the reason why I'm having to do this is because for some reason, the stereo settings, that's the interleaved, that's on there. For some reason, my Pro Tools keeps starting up with some kind of like I should actually go in and maybe I can change the preferences or something like that. But basically, it's got some settings in here that were set a long time ago, and because I think it's because my computer's like an M1 computer, it doesn't do it right. I could be wrong about that. Anyway, so I've set my settings up here. So the first thing I'm going to do, if we're going to record some audio, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make an audio track, a mono audio track. I'm just going to call this one Tony Vocal. I'm going to make a new track here. That's a stereo master fader here. These are the only two tracks I really need. So you always want to have a master fader. And I'm making this mono audio track because we should always be recording in mono. Even though this is a stereo microphone that I've got in front of me because it's like a little cheap microphone that's made for like recording from your phone. Like, you know, it's a nice little like a kind of a boom mic type of thing. Little shotgun type of thing. And it is stereo, but I don't want to record in stereo. And really you shouldn't record stuff in stereo unless you really have a reason to record stuff in stereo. So what we're going to do here is we've got this audio track here, we got our master fader here. What we want to do is go in and look at our playback engine and make sure everything's set up in our playback engine. So under setup here, go to playback engine. It's right here at the top. Go into playback engine, and in here, anything that's connected to your computer will show up in this list here. It should show up. If it doesn't show up, then there's some kind of problem with your driver or your connection or something like that. So if we go in here and you can see I've got a few things listed a couple times, and I don't know why that happens. I've got this like box connected to my computer that has all these inputs and outputs and stuff like that on it. And that, ever since I've connected that up, it kind of does weird things. So I just ignore this. It doesn't break my computer, it's just weird. I don't have a proper audio interface connected to my computer. I don't have like my UAD connected to my computer. I don't have like an Apollo connected to my computer. So I have to actually put together my audio interface from a couple of different sources. I could choose one of these, but the problem is that Pro Tools does not allow you to have a separate source for your input and your output, a destination and source. So if you have multiple inputs and outputs, multiple things connected up to your computer, you're going to have to use what they call the Pro Tools Aggregate I/O, which is this right here. And what this does is it combines any audio interfaces you have connected to your computer. Now let me just go over this one more time. Normally, if you're recording with an audio interface, like you have your Apollo connected to your computer, or you've got your Focusrite connected to your computer, or if you've got your Apogee Duet connected to your computer. If you have any of those things connected to your computer normally, that has your input and output inside of it. But right now I'm using, I've got headphones, I've got like an audio I've got like a microphone connected up. Maybe I want to use my speakers on my computer, something like that. Basically, if you're using the mic on your computer and the headphone out on your computer, those are seen by the operating system as two separate audio devices. Now, it didn't used to be like that. If you were running an old Apple Mac OS a long time ago, it didn't used to be like that. But nowadays, it is like that. The computer sees your output and your input as two separate audio devices. So I have to actually set up my Pro Tools Aggregate I/O to identify two separate devices. Now, what's essentially happening with the Pro Tools Aggregate I/O is your computer is seeing this as a piece of hardware that's connected to your computer, which is kind of weird because you don't have like actual hardware connected to your computer if you're not using hardware. So, but the computer sees my headphone out and my microphone in as two separate pieces of gear. So the Pro Tools Aggregate, what it does is it brings those things together. Maybe you've heard of like an aggregate news website or something like that. Aggregate means to bring multiple things together to one location. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Pro Tools. I'm going to go to my playback engine up here. And I'm going to set this up for Pro Tools Aggregate I/O. And then what I'm going to do is, before we do that, let's go over here to our audio MIDI setup. Now, the audio MIDI setup is in your applications folder down at the bottom, and this is on an Apple computer. If you're on a Windows machine, none of this applies to you. I should have said that in the beginning. I apologize. None of this applies to you if you're on a Windows machine. But if we're on an Apple machine here, we're going to go to our utilities folder here. Open that up. And then go to Audio MIDI Setup right here. And the Pro Tools Aggregate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect up anything that I want to use. I'm going to check the box for anything that I want to use. So in here we can see I've got all this stuff. It shows me here what all is connected to my computer. All these things here are like connected to my computer. And this Pro Tools Aggregate I/O, this is what I'm going to be using right now. And you can see out of all these things that are actually connected to my computer that my computer sees as audio interfaces, the only thing I'm going to use are my external headphones, the MacBook Air speakers, and the external microphone. These are the only things I'm going to use. So I've just got those checked. You can check drift correction here if you want to on stuff. You don't necessarily have to. What that does is it tries to lock in the sample rate so they're all hitting at the same time. That's a whole nother discussion that we can talk about on a different day. So once I've got this set up, I'm going to go ahead and quit out of my audio MIDI setup, and I'm going to go in here and I've got this Pro Tools Aggregate I/O set. I'm going to change this to 128 samples. I'm going to check ignore errors during playback, record, dynamic plug-in processing, great. My cache size, set that to 4 gigabytes rather. You can set it to normal, just leave it alone. I like to actually have it set to 4 gigabytes. If you only have 8 gigs of RAM on your computer, set it to normal or set it to something down here like 1 gigabyte or something like that. Do not set it to 4 gigabytes because then Pro Tools is going to try to allocate too much of the memory to the program. My computer has 16 gigs of RAM, so 4 gigabytes should be fine. If I had 32 gigs of RAM, like what I would like to have, then I could set this to a much higher number. The problem is that the M1 chip only does a max of 16 gigs of RAM. So I'm only going to allocate 4 gigs, which is plenty for most applications, for most uses of Pro Tools. 4 gigs is actually fine. All right, so I'm going to hit OK. Once I do this, we're not going to see any change here because I was already set to that, but sometimes Pro Tools may say you need to save and restart restart Pro Tools or whatever, not restart, but re-upload the session again, and that's fine. Just hit OK for that. It'll say, do you want to save it and restart the session? Just say yes. So let me just show you what that looks like. So if I go up here under Setup Playback Engine and I change this to something else like MacBook Air speakers, it says selecting this playback engine will automatically save and close your session. The session will be reopened when you are done changing settings. Are you sure you want to proceed? Hit yes, and then it's gonna close everything in the background. I hit OK, and then it actually it's gonna reopen my session again like that. Boom. Let's go through that. I'm gonna just do that one more time. Playback engine here, Pro Tools Aggregate IO, which is what I want to be using. Yes. Boom. There we go. Now, at school, if you're going to use headphones and the microphone in the computer, you need to set up your Pro Tools Aggregate. So we're going to go through that again tomorrow at school, but hopefully we're not going to be as slow as we were last time we were in school doing Pro Tools stuff. I don't really want to spend all day tomorrow doing like 16 steps of stuff. I want to be able to have you working on stuff and really getting into it, not just kind of following me. But if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do, especially in the beginning until you kind of get more comfortable with it. But remember, you should be using Pro Tools a little bit every day. I pushed back the deadline for the last Pro Tools exercises and stuff to this weekend. So this weekend you're going to have a couple more things due than normal, but that's because one thing was you've been working on it for 2 weeks now. And so really what we need to do is just make sure that we are using Pro Tools every day, okay? You're not really going to get better at it if you're not using Pro Tools every day. All right, so in here, let's go back to the beginning here. Let me just delete these. So we're back here with an empty session, and the first thing we're going to do is go to Create. We're going to go to Track, New Track here. It's Command-Shift-N is the session is the shortcut for it. Command-Shift-N, and in here we're going to make a mono audio track. I'm going to just name it. Interesting. I'm going to name it Tony Vocal. I totally changed that preference, and it just stayed the same. Huh, that's an interesting bug. And then I'm going to make a new audio track here. I'm going to make a new track. I'm going to make it stereo, and I'm going to make it a master fader. There we go. These should all be samples here. Yours is going to default to samples. Mine, for some reason, is showing me ticks. All right, so here, when we do this, now we can see I've got a couple things here. I've got my external headphones and I've got my MacBook Air speakers. Usually you don't want to mess with this. You just want to leave it to whatever the default setting is. In this case, it's my headphones. What I want to do, though, is I want to make sure I set my input here. And for some reason, it's not showing up correctly. So let me just go here to my I/O. And my input here, default, boom. All right, there we go. Output, boom, 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 bus, boom, boom, boom. There we go, cool. Hit OK, boom. All right, there we go. So we got all this here. And all right, so we got this main and the external outputs here. So the input here, and this main can say anything, but hold on one second. All right, cool. So there we go. Main inputs, external headphones. There we go. Cool. All right. So we've got this. And okay, once we've got this in here, we got a couple buttons here. Let's just go back into our notes here for a second. Okay. So in here, okay, we've got a couple of record modes in here. So the one we're going to be using today mostly is going to be normal record. But the way we get to our record modes is you can right-click on your record button here, and it shows you a couple of different record modes. You got normal mode, loop mode, destructive mode, and quick punch. Got all these different record modes in here, and this allows us to record our audio in different ways. Okay, so let's just start with normal mode. This is just a normal recording way, and I've got my track set up here. I've got the input set, I've got the headphone, external headphone output set, and like this. And here we've got the mute button, the solo button here. We know about those. Mute button just mutes the track. Solo button plays that track only. And then I've got the I button here. And if I hit this I button, if I've got everything set up correctly, we should be seeing everything happening here. We should see it. Now, you notice I hit that mute button first. If I unmute it, check 1, 2, so we can now hear my voice coming through Pro Tools. I don't know if you can hear it differently or not, but I can hear it now in my headphones. If I hit the mute button, I can no longer hear it in my headphones, okay? So as long as we're seeing, oh, you hear double? Okay, cool, yeah, good. So as long as you're seeing this going up and down, you're actually hearing the signal, or you're getting signal into Pro Tools. If you unmute the button here, now you're gonna be hearing it as well, okay? My advice is always press the mute button first and then press the I button. If you don't do that, you're going to get a feedback loop, probably. It depends on what the whole setup is. Okay, Joel, yeah, cool, you can hear it as well. So if you're using your speakers on your laptop and you hit that I button without hitting the mute button, you're going to get an instant feedback loop with your computer because everything is like right next to each other. Okay, so what's up, Barb? How you doing? Nice to see you again. So if you don't hit that mute button first, you're probably going to get a feedback loop. It happens all the time in class because the speakers are right next to the microphone, and it happens especially if you're not using headphones. If you're using headphones, you're not going to get a feedback loop because the speakers are not next to the microphone. So there's that right there. You got a mute button, you got an I button there, and the I button is your input monitor, and that just allows us to hear what's going on. Now, if I hit the record button here, the track record enable, it's gonna flash. The button's gonna flash here, and what that does is it's going to basically make it so you can now record onto the track. Something that's really important to remember with Pro Tools is that if you don't hit this record button, this record enable here, you're not going to be able to record onto the track. You cannot hit it later after you start playing. So with Logic and Ableton Live, you can actually hit the record enable button anytime, and it'll just kind of it'll let you start recording. But with Pro Tools, you must hit the record enable button first before you do anything else. So now I've got this in here, and it will now allow me to record onto the track. So if I go ahead and hit go, hit the record button here and hit go, check 1, 2. This is me recording into Pro Tools. And I stop it. So now if we go back and listen to this, turn the I button off, unmute it, check 1, 2. This is me recording into Pro Tools. Awesome, there we go. And now I can go like this. I can go like this to the end, and I can edit it however I want. Like this, boom, boom, boom. Whoops, there we go. Hit play. Check 1, 2. This is me recording into Pro Tools. Awesome, and I can edit this, I can cut it up. I could just go check 1, 2, 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 check 1, 2. There we go, cool. And we can stop, and there we go. So we're good to go there. So that is that's recording into Pro Tools. That's like as easy as it is. It's not super hard. Why is my computer hanging up like this? This is like a new thing that just started doing last week. Interesting. Okay. So, is that what the punch-in setting for in recording, to be able to punch in recording at any point? Yes, that's exactly what the punch-in setting is for. We are going to talk about that though, T. Hold your horses there, buddy. We're going to come back and talk about it. But yes, that is what the record, punch record is for. Okay. So, how do you hit record while it's playing? You don't. In normal record mode, you cannot hit record while it's playing. You have to actually think, I want to record, and you just set it up to record. And that's the difference. That's a big difference between Pro Tools and Logic and Ableton Live, all those other programs. And you might be like, oh, it's annoying. And it is kind of annoying, but it's not a deal breaker. It's not like the end of the world because like, oh, okay, punch in. Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk about this though. So, so with these programs, like these more like Logic and Ableton Live, they have made it so you can kind of do things on the fly as you go. But with Pro Tools, it's still a little bit old school. It's still a little bit like using audio tape in certain respects. Is it a deal breaker? No, it's not, because you can still do everything you need to do. You just have to think about the order that you do it a little bit more. But there are ways to record. But if you don't have this record enable button right here pressed, it doesn't matter if you have punch record on or not. Okay, so one more time, let's do this again. So I'm going to hit the mute button here. I'm going to hit the I button and check, check, check. I can see what's going on. And I'm going to hit record. I can unmute it so I can hear myself. Hey, there we go. So now I can hear myself. And if I want to record, I'm just going to hit the 3 key and it's going to start recording. 3 key on my numeric keypad. Okay, so here we go. Hey, this is me recording again into Pro Tools. This is another take of me recording into Pro Tools. And I stop. I'm going to go ahead and kill this record button, kill the I button there, and edit this down a little bit here. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, this is me recording again into Pro Tools. This is another take of me. There you go. Boom. Whoops. Awesome. You like the effect of it doubling the voice? That's funny. Yeah, it's, I mean, you know, whatever. It's like, you could do it. You can recreate that effect if you like it. It's you know, it's not hard to do. Also, let me change this here. Clip name. There we go. Cool. All right. So here we go. There's this again, and I can cut this up. Take of me recording. There we go. Boom. Okay. Hold on. Let me just change something in my preferences here so it doesn't. I don't need this to be backing up everything every 3 minutes right now. Operation every. Let's do 10 minutes. I'll do 5 minutes. There we go. I don't know. I think it might be doing something weird in the background with that. I got to figure out what that is, or try to figure it out. So, of me recording into Pro Tools. There we go. Of me recording in. So we can hear that recording. We can edit it. We can do whatever we want with it. It's in here. I can move it around and stuff like that. Okay. So this is the basic basic way to record into Pro Tools. Now, when I'm recording this stuff, you see I'm deleting all these things. Well, if I go over here to my clip list over here on the right-hand side, we can see that everything I've recorded is actually still here. It's still in here. I can drag it back into my session. Check 1, 2. This is me. And I can drag the second one into my session. Hey, this is me recording again into Pro Tools. This is another take of me recording into Pro Tools, right? So we can hear that and we can see it. I can drag it in. Even if I delete it out of my session, it's still over here in the clips list. So Pro Tools doesn't get rid of stuff as soon as you delete it out. It doesn't delete it, but it also doesn't get rid of it in your session. It's still over here in the clips list, so you can always get back to it if you want. Every program has the ability to get back to your clips. Somehow, even if you delete it out of your session. This is what we call non-destructive recording and non-destructive editing. Basically what this means is, if I take this one here, and let's just go ahead and edit down a little bit here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this second one that I did, and edit this, and drop this one on top of this one. Check 1, 2 of me recording into Pro Tools. Check 1, 2 of me recording into Pro Tools. And so we can hear, I just put those together like that, but it didn't actually make a new audio file on my computer. It's still 2 separate audio files on my computer, and we can see those over here. Let me go ahead and auto created, show auto created. I want to show auto created because I want to see all the work I'm doing over here. Now, just one thing, since we're talking about this, and we've talked about this before, but I just want to bring your attention to it again. When we start editing clips, it's going to have a bold clip and it's got all these little non-bold clips. Bold and non-bold. The bold clips are your whole audio files. It's the actual audio recording that's on your computer. These are edits of stuff. So if I go ahead and drag this bold one in, it's the whole thing. But if I drag in one of these other ones, it's only a piece of it. And you can see it's different pieces of it. And that's because I've edited those down. And same thing with this other one right here. If I drag in this whole one here and I drag in a little like this one here, it's just pieces of these things. It's not the actual whole audio clip. Okay. Boom. So there we go. That's how all this stuff is set up. So how did you fade them? We talked about that before. MJ, well, we'll come back and talk about that. But you can just there's different ways to fade them. You really need to do that first lab from the very first week that talks about how to fade stuff. But you can drag from the corner as well. But we'll come back. Let me come back and talk about that because that's like something we already talked about before in a different class. So I don't want to get sidetracked with that right now. But I will explain to you how to do that, MJ. Just we're going to come back to it. So basically, let's go ahead and do this. So I've got this in here, and let's talk about some of these other record modes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up. We're going to do some counting. I know counting is super boring, but it's a good way to kind of just get started with stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a click track so I can count in tempo. And when I do create click track, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, when I do create click track, it creates a click track here. I'm just going to move this to the top. If I hit go, I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit. There we go. So here's my click track. In Pro Tools, you need to make a click track. It doesn't just do a click automatically for you. You need to make that click track. It's really weird, but that's what you got to do. And I'm going to go ahead and change my tempo here. So I'm going to pull up my transport. I'm going to go here to my transport. I'm going to change that to 90. Let's slow it down to 80. All right, there we go. That's a good tempo for counting. Awesome. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up my record. I'm going to set up a loop. Let's make a 2-bar loop here. So I'll be counting to 8. And I'll make the loop right here. And what I'm going to do, I made it right here just so we can see the beginning and end of things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit my record button. Sorry. And hit the record button. I didn't hit the mute button because I know I'm not going to feedback because I've got my headphones on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up for loop record. Right click and go to loop right here. And what this is going to do is it's just going to record in a loop. It's just going to record this 2 bars in a loop. So let's go ahead and hit the 3 key and record. And I'm just going to record myself counting. So here's a little loop here, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cool. Okay. I'm going to turn this off so we can not hear that anymore. And now I'm going to hit play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. Okay. Now you notice that it's actually chopping off the beginning here, but because I was loop recording and I let it play through one time, this first beginning part here actually is part of a longer recording. And what loop recording does is it loops everything as you go, but it's recording a long audio file. So even though you're looping one section of the song, it's recording a long straight audio file. So if I do this, if I pull this over here and I pull this back like this, this is going to, so it's everything I'd recorded first. So here's a little loop here, and I'm going to go 1, 2, like that. Okay. So I had recorded into a section like this, but it recorded everything in one long audio file. And that's really important to understand, is that when you're loop recording, you're not recording a whole bunch of little tiny audio files. You're recording everything into one big long audio file. So what's happening here is you might see it like this, where it just hits that 2-bar mark and comes back to the beginning of like these bars. But actually what it's doing is it's recording everything as one long audio file. So if I've got 8 bars and I record that through 3 times, it's actually recording 24 bars. So let's just see that again real quick. I'm going to hit delete on this, and we're going to loop record one more time. We're going to loop record this part right here. And here I'm going to just set this like this, and I'm going to hit the record button. Here we go. Boom. And hit my 3 key. Turn my clip on. Click on 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, good. So T, I'll come back and answer your question in just a second. Why would you want to use the loop audio recorder? Actually, you'll probably want to mostly use the loop audio recording. It depends on what you're doing, but the situation, in a lot of situations, you're going to use this loop audio recording function. So here, I've got this here, and if I hit play, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. You can hear that it's just playing back the last one that I recorded. But if I take this and drag it to the left, move it over, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, and then I drag it over to the left again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can hear that it's actually, and you can see that it's actually recorded all that counting as one long audio file. 1, 2, like this. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so you can see how this all works here. So I recorded one long audio file. Now, it's not by default, it's not recording different playlists, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. To go back and answer your question though, T, why would you want to use the loop audio recorder? Well, let's say, for example, that I've got a verse of a song, and like maybe I'm recording myself, and I got my verse is 8 bars long, and I want to record my verse. Well, if I'm just recording myself, if I'm by myself in the studio, which happens a lot, if you're recording at home, if you're just recording your own stuff, if I'm in the studio, what I can do is I can set up my loop points for that 8-bar verse, and I can let it loop through, and I can record it a whole bunch of different times, which is going to bring us to talking about our playlists here in just a second. But we're not quite there yet. We're going to talk about a couple of other things first. Okay, so I've got this here, this counting, and let's go ahead and start it from here. 1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and start this first bar here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I've got this
4,
counting.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, and maybe what I want to do is I want to record over. Maybe I recorded that counting wrong, and I want to record over a part of this counting. Well, this is where the punch, quick punch comes in. Okay, so we got in here. Quick punch is right here. And when you hit quick punch, it gives you a little P on the record enable button. Okay, boom. So we got like this, and we do this here. Barb says, Pro Tools has something like take lanes in Ableton Live 11. Barb, Pro Tools made the take lanes. The Ableton Live 11 was the last one to that party. They all have it, but Pro Tools was actually the one that created it. We're going to talk about it here in just a second. So, but it's a great question, actually. It's a funny question because it really shows that like that you're like an Ableton person, which is totally fine. But it's funny that you asked. I'm just pausing here for a second because this is a feature that I've been begging for with Ableton for like 10 years. And they finally added it to Live 11. And here you are. You're just like, oh, does Pro Tools have that? And I'm just like, because I've been wanting that feature for such a long time. It's funny that you asked that question. Okay, it's a great question though. The answer is absolutely yes. Yeah, yeah, Ableton totally has this in Live 11. It's called Take Lanes. Anyway, okay, so, but before we talk about that, we're going to come back and talk about that. Before we talk about, let's look at this quick punch thing. Now, this quick punch thing is something you can do with Ableton, Logic, whatever. You don't need a special recording setting for this. But Pro Tools, you need to have this in quick punch mode here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set this up, and I'm going to go through, and as it's counting, I'm going to count along with it. And I'm going to hit record enable on here, and then I'm going to hit play. We're going to hear my original voice. When I want to record something new, I'm just going to hit the record button in Pro Tools, and it will start recording where I hit it. And then if I hit it again, it will stop recording. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. What's up? What's up, BX Beats? How are you doing? Okay, so we got this here, and I'm going to hit this. Sorry, and it's so funny because y'all can still hear my voice. I can't hear my voice in my headphones when I wasn't recording. But so we got this. Let me just play this back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Cool. So you can hear I can punch this stuff in as I go. Now, one of the things about Pro Tools is that it's kind of like always recording in the background with this quick punch mode. So let me just show you why this is actually really cool. I'm just going to go over here and hit and play from here. And let's say I've got my click on, I've got this recording here like this, that, and I hit go, and I start recording. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I realize that I'm not actually recording anything. Now, if this is like the best take in your life, and it's amazing, and oh my god, I can't believe I'm singing like this, then if you realize that you're not recording, you're going to be pretty sad. Well, the cool thing is, if you are in quick punch mode, Pro Tools is always recording in the background, and all I have to do is hit this 3 key right here. And now, if I back up, go back like this, we can see that Pro Tools has recorded that whole thing, even though it wasn't recording into the channel. So if I go back and hit go, and I hit go, and I start recording, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I realize that I'm not actually recording anything. Now, if this is like the best take in your life, and yeah, super cool. AJ says it's super cool. You're 100% right. That is really cool, and that's a big advantage that Pro Tools has that nothing else has. Logic doesn't do it. Ableton Live doesn't do it. This is strictly a Pro Tools thing. So Pro Tools, keep in mind, and it's in the notes here, that with where's my quick punch here. Quick punch is always recording. Quick punch is always recording, and that's super cool there. Okay, so but there's a couple things to remember with quick punch. To save a recording with quick punch, you must click record before you stop playback. Okay, if you stop the playback first, the background recording is going to be lost. You're not going to have the background recording anymore. So if I stop my playback first, let's go ahead and delete this out. And we're just going to do that one more time here. I'm going to turn on my record enable. And you also have to have the track record enabled. That's another thing. If you don't have the track record enabled, you're not going to hear, this is not going to work. It's not going to let you actually hit record. So any track you want to be recording, you have to hit that record enable button first. So I'm going to go ahead and hit go, and I start singing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I stop. It doesn't matter if I hit the 3 key or not, it's not going to bring it back because I hit stop first. So if I want to capture that recording, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I just have to hit record there, even for just a second. And hitting that record allows me to capture that recording and just pull this back. And there we go. It was all recorded. So the reason why they have that like that is because if you are punching in if you're punching in like this, some of these little areas here might get they're a little bit between, I kind of went a little bit too far that way with that one and this way with this one. So this allows me to actually edit it nice between these takes. So I'm basically capturing the ends of notes and the beginnings of other notes and stuff like that. So it should be good, yeah, nice and smooth. So if we go back and listen to this after I edited it. Oops, hold on. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So you can hear how much smoother it is there after I put those fades in and I move things around a little bit. It's a bit smoother than it was the first time around. And that's really why the Quick Punch is always recording the background so it can be smooth. But a cool offshoot of that is that it's always recording the background, so you can use that as a safety net for you. And I don't do a lot. I'm not a recording engineer. I don't do a lot of recording in Pro Tools for bands and other people like that. But my friends who are recording engineers who use Pro Tools say that this kind of feature has really saved them in the past, where they've realized, oh, we weren't recording. It's going to happen to you at some point in your life where you're doing the best take, or the band's doing the best take, or something like that, and you actually realize, oh wait, we weren't recording. Hopefully you get good enough at this and you kind of get focused enough so it doesn't happen a lot, but it'll probably happen at least once, and you don't want to be caught out. So my advice is, if you're using Pro Tools to record stuff, you should just always have Quick Punch enabled, unless you're using Loop Record. If you're using Loop Record, that's a different thing. But really, if you're just doing regular recording, you should just have Quick Punch enabled all the time. Just leave it on and don't even worry about it. It's just going to always be on. Now, destructive mode here. Destructive mode, what it does is it's supposed to be destructive like tape. I don't know that it actually works like that. I don't think it does anymore. But for example, if I pull in this one here, this big long one, and I hit record over here, why is Elastic Audio Processing active? That's weird. Okay, so I hit record over here, and let's listen to the beginning of this real quick just to hear what it says. And I hit go, and I start recording. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to record something new in the beginning of this. Hey, this is Tony. I am using destructive record mode right now to write over this piece of audio. And see, it recorded a new take here, and it did not destroy this first one. So destructive mode it's not destructive, I don't think, the way it used to be. Hey, I'm going to see if I'm destroying this piece of audio that's in here. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not destroying anything in here. I mean, I don't know how to get it to destroy something. Yo, this is recording over something. Oh, okay, there it did it. If you're recording straight onto it. Okay, so that's, I never use destructive mode. But basically, yeah, I guess it's like this. If you're in the middle of something here, and I hit go, just kind of punch in with 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I can't even punch in with this. But here, if I start recording right here, I'm talking about whatever is in my head right now. I'm just saying stuff. Okay, so we got that. Yeah, you can see it did that. So we listen to it here. 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm talking about whatever is in my head right now. I'm just saying stuff. Anything. Now, if this is yep, and that has recorded over this audio file. So you might now T would be a good time to ask, why would we use this? The answer is, really, you wouldn't use this. I never use destructive record mode. I've never used destructive record mode. I I don't know who uses destructive record mode or in which situation, because if I wanted to take a bunch of stuff and kind of put it all together, I can just like grab stuff and drop it in here, and I could just do editing like this and just kind of pull things around and edit it by hand. So it's you know, and then I could take all this. If I want to make that into a new audio file, I just consolidate it and it makes it into a new audio file. And that's even non-destructive. It's not even destructive there, even though it did make a new audio file. I still have my old audio file. So the destructive record mode is probably more of a holdover from a time when memory was a premium and like hard drives were really expensive. But nowadays, terabyte hard drive, you know, even a recording terabyte hard drive you can get for like $130, and that's just not very expensive at all. So the price of the technology has come way down, so it's not something that you need to worry about even. All right, so we've gone through the 4 different record modes here. We've got normal, loop, destructive, and quick punch. Let's just read about these real quick in the notes. I just went through them with you, but normal mode is you must hit the record button before you start playback. It's just the normal record mode. Honestly, if you're going to use normal record mode, I recommend just using quick punch. Loop, you must set the loop points and hit the record button before you hit play. Same thing with normal, you must hit the record button before you hit play, but in loop mode, you also have to hit those loop points. So let's put it into grid mode. I set up my loop right there, boom. Now it's going to loop around these points here. If I'm in loop record mode. And again, loop record mode is really good for if you're recording like a verse of a song or something like that. I'm going to show you that in more detail here in a little bit. Oh, Joel says, how do you get to quick punch mode again? Just right click on the record button. And then quick punch here, you can play the song and hit record at any time to record or stop recording as it plays. And remember, quick punch is always recording. And then you have destructive mode. Don't even worry about it. Seriously, forget it exists. There's no real reason to use destructive mode. With any of these modes, the track must be record armed first. Quick punch, normal, loop. You've got to record arm the track first. That's very important. Always record arm that track in the very beginning. All right, so and then we talked about all this stuff here. So let's just go through this recording setting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete these tracks. And we're going to do this one more time here. So I got no tracks here. And we're going to go through this step by step. It's right here in your Canvas notes here. So first of all, we go into the Playback Engine setup. Make sure that our Playback Engine is set up correctly. Go to Playback Engine, set for Pro Tools Aggregate I/O. Yep, good. Hardware buffer size 128. You want this to be a smaller number. 128's fine. You can go down to lower numbers, but I just use 128. It's usually fine. And then optimization, ignore errors during playback. Dynamic plugin processing, yes. Optimize performance at low buffer sizes. This stuff here, you can set that up if you want. I don't really use it. Maybe I should be. It's kind of a newer thing, I guess. And then disk playback. Set this for, if you have like 16 gigs of RAM, 4 gigs is a good place to set it. Or if you have higher, use a higher number, like 8 gigs would be great. And then, or normal if you're not really sure about it. But I would set this to a number. If you've got like 8 gigs of RAM on your computer, maybe set this to 1 or just normal. I think it'll change things as it needs to. But I like to keep mine set for 4 gigs because I'm on a 16 gigs RAM machine here, and that's your RAM that makes that number from. Okay, so I've got this here. I'm going to go ahead and make a couple tracks. I'm going to make a mono track, and I'm going to make a stereo master fader, and both of these should be samples. Mine is not defaulting to samples like it should be. So I hit create, boom. I'm going to name the track Tony Vocals. I'm going to name it a different name so you can see over here it's different from these. I'm going to name this track. And the reason why I named it is because you want to be able to stay organized. You always want to have your tracks named before you record onto them. Okay, so now I got this here. I'm going to go ahead and hit my mute button, hit the I button here, hit record. And that's all this stuff here. Track input settings, input, output. Make sure your input and output are set up correctly. It's all right here, or if you're on the other window, it's right here. My input should be my main interface, like whatever your input number 1 is. And then your external headphones here is your output here. I don't want to use the speakers. I'm going to use my external headphones. That's good right there. Great. And we've got that set up. Mute the track to avoid feedback. Engage the input monitor button. This allows you to hear whatever is playing through the monitor track. This must be on in order to monitor the incoming audio. I've got mine set here for something. My Pro Tools is acting a little bit different than it used to. Maybe it's one of these here, solo in place or something. But some versions of Pro Tools, especially some of the ones at school, you've got to have this I button turned on. For mine, it doesn't seem like it's needing that right now. They may have changed something at some point recently. Again, back to some older setting. In here, now with this, if you have it muted, you're not going to hear yourself. So if I want to hear myself, I have to unmute it. And then the track record enable button engages for any track you want to record onto. If no tracks are record enabled, Pro Tools will show you a warning message when you hit record. So if I turn this off and I hit record, it's going to say no tracks are record enabled. Okay, fine. So I'm going to go over here and record enable that track. And then the level settings is about checking your input level. You don't want it to be too soft, but you don't want it to be to clip, right? So if I have this set and I'm recording too soft, listen to what happens when I record too soft. I'm going to record it too soft. I'm going to record down here. I'm going to talk really quiet and record like this, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So I've got that like that. And if we listen to it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's really quiet. If I want it to be louder, I can turn up the level on I can do like a gain level up. Let me go over here to my clip and check out my clip gain info. There we go. So I can go here and I can turn up the clip gain on this clip. We can turn it up a lot. I can turn it up so it's nice and loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you hear what happened just then? What happened was that when I turned it up, all that background noise got really, really loud as well, because everything in the recording just turned up. Let me show you that one more time. If you listen to it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and if I turn it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. Okay, you can hear everything just got super, super loud. If I record loud to begin with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I just recorded there loudly, louder than it was before. If we listen to it, the background noise is still apparent. We can still hear the background noise because it's just very noisy right here with this microphone. But at least my voice is getting up above that signal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. Okay, so I just recorded there loudly. Okay. So in here, stop. So there's this. 1, 2, 3. And you can hear how much louder it is compared to this other one that I did over here. This one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, you can hear the difference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, if I want this one to be as loud as this one, I can make it as loud as that one. So we can do that right there, and it makes it about as loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's also 1, 2. All that noise is super, super loud in the background. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and 1, that's 2, a big problem. 3, 4. Now even this much noise in this one here is a problem. That's like way too much noise. But at least with this one here, I can work to kind of do things to get rid of that noise. I can put like a gate on it. There's some things I can do. With this one here, because my voice is so soft, and to get my voice up to the level I need it to be, that noise is coming up as well. And that's what we call the noise floor. The noise floor is the kind of default noise that the microphone is picking up in the room. And the more, like, the higher of a gain your mic is, and like how clean it is, your preamp, like all things determine this factor. How noisy your room is, all this stuff is in there. This room right here, I've got a fan in the background going. I've got, you know, there's the street is outside my window. So there's a lot of noise happening in here. And I want to, you know, it's not a great room to record in. Also, this microphone is just super noisy. So it's not a great room to record into, but I can still do things to kind of help get this noise floor down. And one of those things is just recording louder, getting my voice louder, getting my voice closer to the microphone. But the other thing we can notice with this too, when I bring my voice, my face closer to the microphone, you can hear all that low frequency in there. And this low frequency gives it a very different tone as if I record a little bit further away. So if I record over here, whoops, no tracks are record enabled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we can hear this. If I hit play, 1, 2, 3. It's louder, but it doesn't sound like this. 1, 2, 3. This one here, you can hear all the low frequencies in my voice, and this is what we call the proximity effect. You're getting, when you're closer to that microphone, you're getting a lot more of all these frequencies in there. It's not really picking up the voice as somebody hears it. It's picking up the voice as it would sound if somebody was like whispering in your ear, and even more because the microphone is actually more dynamic than our eardrums. So we're actually picking up a lot more of those low frequencies, and that it just doesn't sound natural, right? It doesn't sound like anything that you hear in nature. It's kind of a weird sound. So just be aware of these things here, and you can hear it just when you try this stuff. And I'm just trying to like demonstrate this to you as well. Okay, cool. So basically what we want to make sure is that we're checking our levels. We're getting a nice loud recording there. Okay, so the musician should play or sing at the normal volume levels that he or she will be performing at. Like sometimes what'll happen, and actually not sometimes, a lot of times with like singers who are new singers or people who are new to the game, and you say, okay, let's do a mic check. They'll sit there and they'll go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, mic check, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's okay just to make sure we're getting any signal at all. But to actually set the levels for the microphone so we're getting the good recording, you know, what'll happen sometimes is somebody will be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, okay, checking, 1, 2, 3, checking, 1, 2, 3. And then you'll say, okay, now sing. And they'll be like, la, 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 la. They'll start singing really, really loud or whatever. And it's like suddenly you're clipping everything, because if you set those microphone levels to somebody talking softly or just talking in a normal voice, and then suddenly they start shouting, well, that's not the same microphone level, right? So when you're doing your level settings, you always want to make sure that your musician is doing their normal volume levels that they're going to be performing at. So if they sing loud, they need to mic check loud. They should probably just sing part of the song for the microphone check. But do not let them sing for too long, for too loud, for too long, or too high, because they need to save their voice, save it for the recording. So that's the thing we need to just keep in mind there. We talked about that in class the other week, so we need to make sure that we remember that. Okay. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead. We're gonna stop right there for now and take a break. Let me go ahead and stop this recording.